True wealth is not found in the accumulation of gold, but in the absolute mastery of one's own desires and the courageous refusal to be a slave to the expectations of a noisy world. The woman who chooses to live on only $1 a day is not a victim of a failing economy, but a master of her own internal sovereignty, who has discovered that the greatest fortune is the deliberate removal of the unnecessary. When you adopt a Stoic investment strategy, in its most literal and practical sense, you begin to realize that your primary capital is not the currency sitting in a bank account, but the unshakable power of your own reason and the clarity of your own will. To develop a true wealth mindset, you must stop measuring your life by what you can acquire and start measuring it by what no longer has the power to disturb your tranquility. Most individuals spend their entire existence chasing a moving horizon of more without ever pausing to define what enough looks like. And as a result, they remain in a state of perpetual poverty regardless of how much they earn or how many assets they possess. Achieving total financial control requires the radical courage to simplify your external environment so that your internal life can finally expand into the silence left behind by the absence of consumerism. The woman in this narrative has achieved a level of prosperity that few billionaires will ever understand because she has decoupled her happiness from the fluctuations of the external world and the whims of the crowd. She understands that if you do not desire the luxury that the world offers, you can never be manipulated by the fear of losing it. This is the foundation of a life built on the rock of truth, where every dollar saved is not just a unit of currency, but a minute of your limited life reclaimed from the noise of a system designed to keep you wanting. We must understand that true freedom is not the ability to buy anything you want, but the strength to want nothing that is outside of your control. By living on $1 a day, she has proven that the mind requires very little to be satisfied if the soul is already full. Clara spent 15 years at the absolute summit of the corporate world, where her value was calculated by the precision of her reports and the speed of her ascent up a ladder made of glass and pressure. She was a master of the corporate game who lived in a state of constant high alert, where every heartbeat was synchronized with the opening bell of the exchange, and every breath was a calculation of personal risk and reward. She lived in a sprawling glass apartment that overlooked the city lights, but she was so busy watching the digital charts on her multiple monitors that she never truly saw the sky or felt the air on her skin. Her life was defined by extreme market volatility and the crushing weight of social expectations that she had built for herself out of luxury and prestige. In her frantic pursuit of capital preservation, she had allowed her own spirit to become brittle and thin as she traded her sleep and her sanity for numbers on a screen that promised a security they could never deliver. This profound lack of emotional discipline turned her into a stranger in her own skin, who was always present in boardrooms but never present in her own life. She remembered a night when the global markets were collapsing, and she sat in the cold blue light of her monitors feeling a physical pain in her chest, as if the loss of digital assets were a loss of her own blood and bone. She was a slave to the opinions of strangers and the movements of prices she could not control, until the day her own body forced her to enter the silence of an empty hospital room. A sudden collapse in her health led to a long recovery, where the noise of the ticker finally faded, and the voice of her own soul began to speak for the first time in a decade. In that silence, she realized that she was haunting a life that did not belong to her, and that all her wealth was merely a heavy set of chains forged in gold and expectation. She decided then to perform the ultimate act of rebellion, which was to walk away from everything she had built and everyone she was supposed to be in the eyes of others. She sold her assets and closed her accounts, and moved to a small cabin where the rhythm of the waves replaced the rhythm of the stock market. She now lives in a tiny room with a single window and a wooden desk where she spends her days in deep contemplation and her nights in a peace she had never known. She found that the less she had to manage in the world, the more she was able to manage within herself. You have likely felt this same exhaustion when looking at your own bank account and wondering if you are doing enough, or if the next crash will destroy the future you have been promised. You have felt the weight of wanting things that you do not need just to prove that you are successful to people you do not even like. This is the narrative of conflict that defines the modern soul, who is lost in a desert of abundance and dying of spiritual thirst while holding a cup of gold. Clara found her oasis by realizing that the only thing she truly owned was her ability to choose how she responded to the world and what she allowed into the fortress of her mind. To understand the source of Clara's strength, we must return to the source of Stoicism itself and the teachings of Epictetus, who was born in the chains of slavery and yet died as a man freer than any emperor who ever lived. Epictetus did not merely speak of Stoic principles, but he embodied the truth that our only true property is our faculty of moral choice, which he called the proherses. He taught that the world is divided into two spheres, which are the things that are up to us and the things that are not up to us. Our opinions, our impulses, and our own desires are within our power, but our bodies, our property, and our reputations are external, and therefore subject to the whims of fate. Epictetus would look at the modern obsession with portfolio management, and he would smile with a gentle pity, because he knew that the person who ties their happiness to their net worth is a person who has handed the keys to their prison to the market. He used the analogy of a traveler at an inn who becomes so enamored with the comfort of the room that they forget they are on a journey to their true home. Clara's choice to live on $1 a day is a direct application of the handbook of Epictetus, where he advises us to treat life like a banquet where we should only take what is necessary and never reach for what has not yet been offered. By reducing her needs to the absolute minimum, Clara has placed herself beyond the reach of the market and its erratic nature. She is no longer concerned with long-term investing in the traditional sense, because she has invested in the one asset that cannot be inflated or stolen, which is her own character and her own reason. When Epictetus spoke of the door being open, he meant that we always have the choice to leave a situation that compromises our virtue, and Clara opened the door to her old life and stepped through it into the light of simplicity. She understands that wealth is not a matter of having many things, but of having few needs, and by living on so little, she has expanded her freedom to a degree that is incomprehensible to those still trapped in the cycle of consumption. Epictetus reminded us that if you value anything outside of your own, you will lose your peace because you are making yourself a hostage to fortune. Clara applied this rigor to her finances by recognizing that if she valued her luxury, she was making herself a hostage to the economy. She chose to value only her reason, and in doing so, she became invincible to the fluctuations of the outside world. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of the inner citadel, but Epictetus provided the manual for how to build it, and Clara is the architect of her own fortress. If you focus on your internal control, write indifferent in the comments. This single word is the ultimate declaration of independence from the external world, because it recognizes that the loss or gain of money is a matter of indifference to the health of the soul. Epictetus taught that we should not seek for things to happen the way we want them to, but rather wish for them to happen exactly as they do, because that is the path to tranquility. Clara does not hope for the dollar to go further or for the world to be cheaper, but she accepts the reality of her environment and finds her richness within that acceptance. This is the highest form of Stoic principles in action, where the material world becomes a transparent veil that no longer obscures the beauty of the present moment. She has learned to eat with her mind as much as with her mouth, finding sustenance in the realization that she requires almost nothing from the world to be happy. Building a life like Clara's requires a practical framework that functions as a shield against the psychological traps of a society that profits from your dissatisfaction. To move toward this state of grace, you must master the art of building wealth quietly, which means accumulating assets for the sake of freedom rather than for the sake of display. This begins with a radical audit of your internal desires and a commitment to how to stop impulse spending by asking the question that Epictetus would ask: is this thing within my control, or is it a master that I am inviting into my home to rule over me? Every time you buy something you do not need, you are giving away a piece of your sovereignty and tying your happiness to an object that will eventually break or become obsolete. True financial control is the ability to say no to the world so that you can say yes to your own time and your own peace. You should create a system where your basic needs are met with the absolute minimum of complexity, which allows your mind to focus on the higher callings of reason and service. This framework demands that you decouple your identity from your profession and your income, so that if you were to lose everything tomorrow, your sense of self would remain entirely intact and unshaken. You must practice voluntary discomfort by regularly spending days living on as little as possible to prove to your subconscious that you are capable of surviving outside of the luxury that the world claims is essential. When you realize that a simple bowl of rice and a glass of water can provide the same physical sustenance as a feast, you lose your fear of the future and your fear of the market. This is the ultimate hedge against market volatility, because the person who needs nothing can never be made poor by a crash in prices. Your investment strategy should be a silent engine that works in the background of your life, rather than a spectacle that requires your daily attention. By focusing on low-cost indices and long-term horizons, you are essentially planting a forest that you do not need to watch grow every day. The framework of a Stoic investor is built on the foundation of the margin of safety, which is not just a financial buffer but a mental one. You must have a margin of safety in your mind, so that you are never forced to make a decision out of panic or desperation. Clara found that her $1 a day was more than enough because her soul was not hungry for the things that money buys. She realized that the most valuable things in life, such as the light of the sun and the ability to think clearly and the presence of virtue, are all free of charge. To build this life, you must be willing to be misunderstood by those who are still chasing shadows, and you must be willing to be seen as poor by the world while you are secretly becoming the richest person in your own life. This is the quiet path to a legacy that is measured in wisdom rather than in gold. Every morning, Clara sits in her small room and reminds herself of the words of Epictetus: "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well." This is her daily audit. She looks at her $1 and sees not a limitation but a boundary of her freedom. She asks herself if she can be happy with this, and the answer is always a profound yes. This yes is her true wealth. She has learned that the mind is a garden that requires weeding, and the most dangerous weeds are the desires for things that belong to others. By weeding her garden daily, she has created a space where peace can grow without effort. You can begin this process today by simply refusing to participate in the next trend or the next social comparison. You can begin by deciding that your current possessions are enough and that your current life is sufficient. When you stop looking for the next thing, you finally see the thing that is right in front of you. This is the practical application of Stoicism to the modern world of finance. It is the realization that the most productive thing you can do for your wealth is to cultivate a mind that does not need it. The framework of living on $1 a day is a training ground for the soul where you learn to find joy in the smallest details of existence. You learn to appreciate the texture of a grain of rice and the clarity of a cool stream. These are the things that the market cannot price and therefore cannot take away. By practicing this extreme frugality, you are not punishing yourself, but you are expanding your capacity for gratitude. You are realizing that the less you require from the world, the more power you have over it. Most people are in a state of financial panic because they have built a life that requires a high level of maintenance. They are like a ship that is too heavy to sail in shallow water. Clara has built a life that is like a light raft that can navigate any storm and any sea. She has eliminated the drag of debt and the weight of luxury. She has found that a simple life is not a life of less, but a life of more of what truly matters. This is the framework of the silent mentor who leads by example. She does not preach to others, but her very existence is a critique of the madness of the modern age. She shows us that there is another way to live that does not involve the constant trading of our time for paper that fluctuates in value. She shows us that the ultimate currency is the quality of our own consciousness. When you invest in your own character, you are making a trade that will pay dividends for the rest of your life. This is the only investment that has a guaranteed return. It is the only investment that is immune to the cycles of the economy. It is the only investment that you can take with you to the grave. The system in which we live is designed to keep you in a state of perpetual debt and psychological exhaustion, because a human who is afraid for their future is a human who is easy to manipulate and govern by those who profit from that fear. They want you to believe that you are defined by your purchases and that your security is found in the accumulation of more objects. But Stoicism is the ultimate rebellion against this consumerist cage. Epictetus taught us that the only true freedom is the ability to choose our own thoughts and our own values. And when you choose simplicity, you are claiming your own throne. The pursuit of money should never be about the collection of status symbols, but about the purchase of your own time so that you can live according to the dictates of your own reason, rather than the demands of a corporation or a bank. The system wants you poor in spirit so that you will try to fill the void with material possessions. But the Stoic is already full because she knows that she already has everything necessary for a good life within her own mind. Clara's life on $1 a day is a testament to the fact that when you subtract the unnecessary, you are left with the infinite capacity of the soul. She has found that the less she owns, the more she possesses herself and her own time. The system wants you addicted to the dopamine hit of a rising stock price or the acquisition of a new luxury. But Stoicism makes you free by showing you that your value is independent of your net worth and your social standing. The true Stoic investor can walk through a city of golden palaces and feel no envy because her home is built in the fortress of her own character, which no market can touch or destroy. Realize that every time you resist the urge to buy something you do not need, you are winning a battle against your own lower nature, and you are reclaiming a piece of your life from the void of digital noise. True freedom is not having the ability to buy anything you want, but having the discipline to want nothing that is outside of your control. Master your desires and you will master your destiny. The silence you cultivate today will become the foundation of your legacy tomorrow. And while others are losing their sleep over interest rates and quarterly reports, you will be sleeping soundly knowing that the world's chaos cannot touch the core of your being. You are the architect of your own tranquility and the guardian of your own time. Do not let the ghosts of the future or the shadows of the market steal this moment from you. Stand firm in your reason and let the world do as it will. You have already won the only war that matters, which is the war for your own soul and your own internal peace. The woman living on $1 a day is the ultimate mentor because she shows us that the door to freedom is always open if we only have the courage to walk through it and leave the baggage of the world behind. The system wants you poor. Stoicism makes you free. Clara sits by her window at dusk, watching the light fade from the hills, and she feels a richness that cannot be expressed in any currency known to man. She is rich in time. She is rich in thought. She is rich in the absolute knowledge that she is the master of her own life. She looks at her $1 and smiles because she knows it has no power over her. She has reached the summit of the mountain not by climbing higher, but by realizing she was already at the top the moment she stopped reaching for more. This is the invitation we extend to you today, to stop climbing, to stop wanting, to start being. The world will continue to scream for your attention, but you can choose to ignore it. You can choose the silence. You can choose the $1 a day. You can choose yourself. This is the final transformation of the Stoic investor. It is the realization that the ultimate investment is the one you make in your own freedom and your own reason. There is no higher return on capital. There is no greater security in an uncertain world. There is only the peace of a mind that has found its center and refuses to move for any external event. As you move forward from this video, do not think about what you need to buy, but think about what you can give away. Think about the chains you are carrying and how good it will feel to let them drop. The path is open. The choice is yours. Every breath you take is a chance to start over. Every dollar you don't spend is a seed of freedom. Epictetus said that we should not be like sheep who just eat and grow wool, but we should be like those who produce something useful from within. What you produce is your own peace. That is your greatest work of art. That is your true fortune. The world is waiting for you to wake up from the dream of consumption. Clara is already awake. She is waiting for you in the silence. Master your mind and you master the world. Subscribe to Money and Stoicism to master your finances and your mind. Like this video if you seek true freedom.